Good evening. All right, here we go. When was the last time you went to a Christian conference and there were six main stage speakers and only one of them was a man? Only person I know. This is good news, my friends. On top of that, the women of color are speaking. The women are speaking are women of color. We need to take time, soak this in, and appreciate this. As the token male tonight, I will say part of what we have to do if we really want to be about this work is we have to understand that patriarchy manifests itself differently in every community of color. We talk about it universally, when we talk about it, which is rarely. We talk about it universally, but it has particular nuances within each ethnic-specific community. And so we need to do the hard work of identifying, calling out, renouncing, and working to end patriarchy in every ethnic-specific community if we're ever going to be building movements of solidarity. When we welcome you to this space, I was a little bit late, so this might have happened already, but we need to acknowledge that this was initially native land. We need to acknowledge that Chicago comes from a native word. We need to acknowledge the history and the legacy. And what we need to know is as we try to build these movements of solidarity, we are working from a deficit. Because we have all been intentionally miseducated by an educational system that is predicated upon white supremacy, that does not teach us anything about ourselves and other people of color. So we walk through the world very ignorant. And many of us are so paralyzed by the racism that is coming at us in our own communities that we don't feel like we have the capacity to reach out and learn about other communities of color. But my friends, that is a tool of white supremacy. When we allow ourselves to just be focused on only what's going on in our communities and we don't show up for our brothers and sisters, we are re-perpetuating the problem. Our apathy is a foundational pillar of why the empire continues to function the way that it does. Man, this is not a 10-minute conversation. So when we talk about this, we need to understand, another thing we need to understand is the impact of trauma. This is something that is becoming more and more common, but there's a great book called The Body Keeps Score. I highly recommend this book. It will talk to you about how literally the mind rewires itself when it lives in a perpetual state of trauma. That is what communities of color are and have been doing in our nation since its existence. And so when we sit back and we are armchair politics and we look at other community colors and say, that's not a logical decision. Why would a person choose to do that? We don't understand the impacts of trauma and how it has literally rewired people's brains to the point that they're not thinking with their logical brain, they're thinking with their survival brain. And this has enabled people to pathologize communities of color and label us dysfunctional for generations after generations. And when communities of colors have bought into that lie about one another, it dissuades us from wanting to enter into solidarity. Because we understand the ways in which if I get associated with this, then I'm not associated with this. And we all know that this is the whiteness and all of the things that this nation has told us about ourselves. But it also keeps us from knowing the true issues that are going on within communities of color. So we need to know that today Native concerns are not reduced down to just water rights and land issues. We need to know that there are more issues that are in Native communities. Natives are profoundly overrepresented in our criminal justice system. They are profoundly overrepresented in poverty rates, police violence, suicide, and sexual abuse. There's all of these logistics about what happens if somebody from off a reservation comes onto a reservation, sexually assaults somebody, and leaves the reservation. We don't know this kind of stuff though, because our educational system is broken, but we're so concentrated on what's going on in our communities that we don't take the time to learn about our brothers and sisters, and then therefore we don't know how to show up for them. When we look at the Black community, I won't spend much time on this, but we need to know that this is a profoundly important year for Black people. This is the 100th year of 1919, which was Red Summer, where there were 25 anti-black race riots all across the country, and Chicago was one of the prominent ones. We know that this marked 400 years in regards to slavery. We also should know as Christians that this marks the 50-year anniversary of the Black Manifesto that was announced, where Black Christians publicly charged white supremacy and said, this is what you owe us. You owe us reparations, and this is how it needs to look. We're not asking your permission. We're not saying that you get to dictate how the funds are distributed. We need to know this history if we're going to show up for one another. When we talk about this, though, part of the problem, and I'm particularly on some of this, is the ways that in the Black community, we have bought into these same kind of lies about other people. And it's intentional and it's systemic, and I want us to know that it is a consequence of white supremacy. So, for example, here in Chicago, about 4 years ago, there were intentionally people who were deployed on the south side of the city to pass out all of these pamphlets that were telling Black people how they should not stand in solidarity with their Latino brothers and sisters right now, given everything that was going on with immigration. It was calling them illegals. It was saying they're coming to steal our jobs. It was saying all of these negative propaganda. It was trying to intentionally move the Black populace from standing with their brothers and sisters. We need to understand these tactics of empire and resist them, and call them out for what they are. And if the church isn't a place that we can do that, I don't know where we're supposed to create that space. And historically, we all know that evangelicalism has failed to do it to the way that it needs to. So that's why we're here creating an alternative space. But I say we can't give up on our brothers and sisters who are still in those other spaces. We have to continue to speak truth into their life. We need to know about the history, though. We need to know that everything that's going on with immigration isn't a new thing. We need to know about Operation Wetback. We need to know about the Bracero program. We need to know about NAFTA and the way that NAFTA literally made it illegal for people to be able to sustain themselves anymore. When we don't know this history, we fall victim to the propaganda that's produced by the empire. And so we need to be intentional about this. And I'll close by telling a story that happened to me 2 weeks ago. I was in Atlanta for a conference on the impacts of racial trauma. And I went out with my wife and one of my best friends. My wife is Chinese, and one of my best friends and his wife are both Chinese. And we went down to the budgeting Asian American population in Atlanta, right outside the city. And we went to this place for some dinner rolls or whatever. And they went inside, because I'm on a keto diet right now, so I couldn't eat the sweets. And so I was sitting outside while they were doing their thing. And when I was sitting outside, this incident started to transpire. There was this Black guy who was around the building, and he seemed a little disheveled. He probably was lower income, in need of help. And one of the workers at the restaurant was off duty on a date with his wife, girlfriend. So he saw the guy asked him for a pen, and then he said, "Why the F are you always around here? You just need to go away. We don't want you here. We don't want your kind of people in this community." And he proceeded to call the man a nigger over 10 times in the course of 5 minutes. And then when the Black guy said, "Why do you have to call me that? Why are you being racial?" he proceeds to respond, "Oh, that's not racial, that's just part of my vocabulary. That's just how we talk. There's no racial implications for that." And this is the situation that we're up against. Words like that cause so much harm and trauma have been so destigmatized in our climate that people believe that they can invoke them with no consequence, that they have no meaning for people who are still living under the weight of that. And so they proceeded to ultimately end up fighting, and because we were in an Asian American space, when the officers came, there was one side of the narrative that was told. The Black man ended up getting arrested. The Asian American guy got to stay there with his girlfriend, and nothing ended up happening. Even though I gave the testimony, I was the only person who was there who saw the entire thing transpire. This is the reality of what happens when we don't show up for one another, where we don't know this history and this legacy. And we have to just be really intentional, because the powers that be are intentional about propagating things that are going to divert our attention from knowing the truth of our nation. But when we know the truth, we know how to show up for one another. And when we know the biblical truth, solidarity has been something that we have kind of allowed the secular space to own, but the truest manifestation of solidarity in the world's history is Jesus entering into the world in solidarity on our behalf to show up for us and liberate us through love. So that's what we're called to do as the body of Christ today, and we're going to continue to press into that over this week.